Hello, my name is Sophie and welcome back to my channel. I may be generally quite unreliable in terms of actually posting every week, but I am quite reliable in doing a TBR video and a monthly wrap-up video because I like a routine, and these are the routine videos. The cat is floating around the room, so if I keep looking distracted, it's because she may be causing mayhem. Do you have anything to say? No? Are you going to stop being a menace? No? I may have made a fatal error. It's not dinner time yet. It's only 3:30. Books I finished in October. I finished 7 books in October. You've distracted me, Mango. I mean, you can stand on my laptop if that was my nose. Thank you. I think I need to carry on. I finished 7 books in October, and all of them were on my monthly TBR. So I also finished my October TBR. I don't trust her not to show her butthole on the internet. I finished 7 books in October. I finished my October TBR. There was one bonus book in it. Actually, no, it was the end of my September TBR was the bonus book I finished. Now that the cat is no longer on the desk, let's get on with it. The first book I finished was my second attempt at reading this book from the Wedding Library. This chunky book is a bind-up of the first 3 books in the Warlock series. The bind-up is called Warlock to the Magic Born, and the first book is called Escape Velocity by Christopher Stasheff, which is technically a prequel. Book 1 is called The Warlock in Spite of Himself, and Escape Velocity is counted as book 0, but on the back here it's listed as book 1, which made trying to find any version of it online, whether that be an audiobook that doesn't exist or an ebook, quite challenging. But this was my second attempt at reading this. I think it's technically a novella, but this prequel book, and I did finish it this time. I powered through and I rated it 2 stars. So arguably DNFing it the first time was the right decision. But where I have been better at DNFing books this year, the Wedding Library feels different because I'm on a mission to read every book in the Wedding Library. TLDR, if this is your first video and you're not familiar with the Wedding Library, when my husband and I got married, we asked our guests to gift us a copy of their favourite book, so we'd have a little library of our favourite people's favourite books, and in an endeavour to read them all, I choose one a month in an endeavour to read them all. I need to figure out that script because the ending just never works. And so far, I've not DNF'd any of them. Don't get me wrong, I've not rated them all highly. I've not enjoyed every single one of them. But I did DNF this the first time round, but it was a soft DNF because of what the Wedding Library is, and I don't really want to have one that I've not read. I finished it. It was a 2-star book. It's described as sci-fi fantasy, but there isn't really any fantasy. It's very sci-fi, and I think it's meant to be kind of quite a classic 80s British humour, but the humour didn't really land with me. It kind of went over my head and just felt awkward, and I'm the kind of person that doesn't find incompetence funny. So, like, the only example I can think of is when we were kids, shows like Chucklevision was basically just 2 men being incompetent, and I never found that funny. The whole thing just kind of gets out of hand, and I didn't really find it entertaining, and I didn't really understand it. Especially because it's what's written on the back is a world of elves, witches, goblins, and all other fabled creatures that shouldn't exist but do. Then you get this really heavy sci-fi book, which has nothing to do with elves, witches, goblins, and fabled creatures. So I'm intrigued to see how that prequel connects to the rest of the series and is relevant. It kind of just never really went anywhere, especially based on what I read on the back. I think it perhaps is one of those prequels that furthers world building once you've already read the series. But then surely, why is it arranged first in this bind-up if it doesn't really make sense without reading the rest? It just felt a bit odd. I'm still going to read the rest. If the first book doesn't make sense to go first, why is it first? 2 stars, not my vibe. Will read the rest though, because I kind of have to, or I feel obliged to. I don't have to do anything. Anyway, after that, I finished the audiobook of The Impossible Fortune by Richard Osman, which was the last book on my September TBR, except it didn't come out until the 25th of September, so I only gave myself 5 days to finish this 10.5 hour audiobook. So in hindsight, it makes sense that I didn't finish it. But I did finish it in October, and I rated it 5 stars. I really didn't expect to, because the rest of the Thursday Murder Club, I think, has just been a very steady 4-star series for me. I really enjoy it, but it's never given me that 5-star feeling before. I just really enjoyed it. I enjoy Richard Osman's humour and the way that he writes his characters. I wouldn't say I particularly enjoy reading about characters of that age, because it's not something I've ever really read before, but there is something kind of charming about reading about elderly people. Maybe it's because I don't have any of my biological grandparents left in my life. But yeah, these 4 characters are just so endearing. The found family they have in their wider groups as well. It's really, really sweet. Like I said, I really like the humour, and I just found it charming. It gave me the 5-star feeling. And in the same way, we can't explain when we don't get the 5-star feeling, I can't explain why it did give me the 5-star feeling. 5 stars is a feeling. And I got it with this book, and I had a wonderful time. The audiobooks are fantastic. I've just not been let down by a Richard Osman book. I like his writing style, and it doesn't really fit with any of the other books that I would consider my genres. But I do just enjoy it, and sometimes it's best not to look too far into it. Then the next book I finished was actually on the same drive that I finished The Impossible Fortune, because I only had about an hour left of that book, and I had a 3-hour drive up to visit my extended family. And the audiobook 4 of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck is only 3 hours long, and I listen at generally 1.5 speed, so I could listen to this whole thing in the rest of that drive after I finished The Impossible Fortune. So I listened to Of Mice and Men in one sitting. I didn't think I would ever revisit this book, because I studied this book for GCSE English, and I think when you study a book that heavily, when you're not that way inclined, obviously there are some people that are very much that way inclined and really enjoy studying books like that. I am not one of them. I never thought I'd pick this book up again, but I saw it at a charity shop. It was only £1, and I thought, actually, I would like to read this on a more surface level and just enjoy it for what it is, without having to think about the connotations and the meaning behind everything and the political statements that are being made. And I found I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars. I can see why it's an important read, and I can see why it's really good to be studied as a text. And it was quite nice to be able to listen to it at surface level and remember, oh yes, this symbolises this, and this is the scene with all the minority characters, and remembering the things from when I analysed it for my GCSE. And yeah, I just found it quite nice, actually. The fact it's really short did help. The fact I read it in one sitting also helped. But yeah, there was actually a little bit of nostalgia there for a book that I studied for an exam, which I really didn't think I would feel. Here we are. I actually enjoyed Of Mice and Men. So that's one classic that I will actually keep on my shelves. And then we go for a bit of a flip reverse. We have By the Book by Jasmine Guillory. This one I picked up because it's about a woman in publishing, and I love reading books about people that work with books. That's normally my vibe. Except what I didn't pick up at the time is that this is basically like a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, which is one of my favourite Disney movies, don't get me wrong. But when in the prologue to this book, it's revealed that she works at a publishing house called Tale as Old as Time, I was already rolling my eyes. It was already a bit too much. The references to Beauty and the Beast, and it's very much the Disney film Beauty and the Beast, not the classic fairy tale. So it did feel very Disneyified. It's like no one has ever taught this woman how to be subtle, because there was several references to having a conversation with furniture, and like one flippant comment would have been, funny, I get what she's getting. She's making a joke. But then she was like, why am I talking to a candlestick? Who even has candlesticks? That's a bit on the nose. And then there's a bit where I'm pretty sure she actually writes that the bath is talking to her. That was a bit much. But even taking out the Beauty and the Beast aspects, the female main character in this is just so presumptuous about who the male main character is that he becomes this enemy, and I think it's attempted to be enemies to lovers, but he is actually a real sweetheart, and he was the redeeming factor in this. I was so close to DNFing this at 50 pages, but I pushed through because the male main character was really sweet. And once the female main character got off her high horse... Are you in the bookshelf again? You are. This is where my cat is right now. I didn't think owning a cat would mean I'd have to coax them out of my bookshelves. But here we are. Yeah, the male main character was the redeeming factor in all of this. The female main character was incredibly judgmental. And it wasn't the easy, cheesy, nice romance that I thought it would be. Yeah, I just didn't like it. I rated it 2 stars. It wasn't for me. Too many references to talking to furniture. Following that, I read a new release that came out in October that I pre-ordered, and that is Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I went into this with literally 0 expectations because I liked Bride, but I didn't love it. It wasn't my favourite. It was a little bit too... I don't want to say political, because normally I do in fantasy like political aspects, but I don't think I really loved Misery as a main character, almost exclusively because her name was Misery, and I was like, Ali, honey, that's pushing it a little bit. It definitely can't be read as an interconnected standalone. There's too many references to what happens in the first book for this to make sense independently. But I just had so much fun. I listened to the audiobook and it's duet narration rather than dual narration, which I'm learning are different. Duet narration is where the male main character will voice the male lines in the female character's perspective, rather than the female narrator doing all the voices in her chapters and the male narrator doing all the voices in his chapters, which I think did make it more immersive, because just having those authentic voices for each of those characters made it feel so much more immersive. And I like Serena as a character. What's the other? Cohen was a bit much. He was a bit excessive, but it was just fun. This isn't trying to be a high fantasy. This isn't trying to be a high fantasy, groundbreaking, new take on werewolves. It's just a werewolf romance book, and it was really fun. The spice was really good. I really enjoyed the spice of this book. I thought it was wonderful. I had a great time. It gave me the 5-star feeling. So I rated it 5 stars. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. I had a lot of long drives in that week, and this was the best way to spend them. I had a fantastic time. Unfortunately, that is the last 5-star book of the month, and it kind of doesn't go downhill, but there's no more 5-star feelings left in the month. The next book I finished was another audiobook, and that was the last book I needed to read in Holly Jackson's backlist. I read 5 Survive. When this first came out, I didn't buy it because I didn't think the concept sounded that good. I was disappointed with the end of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I'd kind of lost my faith in Holly Jackson a little bit. Obviously, that's since been restored because I loved the reappearance of Rachel Price. I loved, what was the other one? Not Quite Dead Yet. So I thought I might as well go back and read 5 Survive, because I did pick up a copy, but only because this hardback edition was £2.50 when the paperback came out. So I got this dirt cheap. And unfortunately, I kind of wish I still hadn't read it. Not that dramatic, but it was my least favourite Holly Jackson for sure. The concept, now that I've read some of her other books, actually does sound quite interesting. The whole thing about how there's 6 of them in essentially a camper van. What do they call it? An RV in America. And there's a sniper and only 5 survive. I mean, the concept is pretty straightforward. Another thing I really liked is that the whole story takes place over approximately 8 hours, with a little bit longer at the beginning and the end. And the audiobook is 10 hours and 35 minutes, according to my Storygraph statistics. So it's almost like it's happening in real time, which I thought was actually the pacing was, well, no, actually, I thought it was clever that the length of the book essentially equated to the length of time that the book is set in, but consequently the pacing did feel a little bit dry in places. Yeah, there was times where it felt really, really slow, and I did get a little bit bored. But my main issue with this book was that one of the 6 characters, out of these 6 characters, there was one main character who is the main character, and her name is Red. She was interesting, but seemed to have an unreliable narrative that wasn't really explained. It was like she genuinely had memory issues, like a cognitive memory issue, that wasn't given any neural explanation. Like, she's had some traumatic stuff happen in her life, but it's not like she's... And you mean, I don't want to say it's not like she's been diagnosed with something, but the issues with her memory were definitely something that should be diagnosable, you know? So I was a bit iffy about... I like her as a character, but that aspect of her memory issues was just... the way it was unexplained. The way it was unexplained kind of made me feel like there was something coming, and it never did. It was never given an explanation. But the main reason I didn't enjoy this book is that one of these 6 characters, the remaining 5 secondary characters, was so irritating that when I was listening to this book on my drive to work and back, which is only about 25 minutes, I started counting how many times this character made me roll my eyes in those nearly half-hour drives, because it was happening so often and he was so irritating. He didn't feel like a person. He just felt like an antagonist for the sake of an antagonist. Like he was being really stupid and no one was calling out his behaviour. It just didn't make any sense. And there were so many occasions where he'd do things or blame people for things. And I'm like, hang on, no logical human is actually reaching these conclusions, surely. And that just made the whole pacing issue feel even more frustrating. The ending was insanely good. I really, really liked the ending. But because I'd found this character, Oliver, so frustrating, I just couldn't give it more than 3 stars because he was so infuriating and so falsely infuriating that he didn't even feel like a person. But I just couldn't. Oliver was so irritating. I just couldn't give it more than 3 stars. I'm glad I've read it because I've now read the entirety of Holly Jackson's bibliography, but it was definitely my least favourite. And then we get on to the last book I read this month. I have been rereading this series throughout the year and having a wonderful time. The series is Maximum Ride. This was my favourite series when I was about 14, and I pulled it from my TBR jar to be on my 25 in 2025 for this year. So I read book 1 in January, ironically, and I've been slowly making my way through the series when I've had time throughout the year. And this month I read the 4th book in the series, which is called The Final Warning by James Patterson. I don't know if I said the author's name. Ironically, this is the first book in my reread that I haven't given 5 stars. It felt very much like a filler book. I didn't really know why they were doing what they were doing. I still really enjoyed it because I find these characters so comforting. I find this writing style so comforting. This is the shortest book of the series so far, and the writing style and the formatting of these books means I can get through them so quickly. It was very enjoyable. I really, really liked it. I just didn't really understand it in the wider context of the series. So it didn't give me that 5-star feeling, but it's still very much an enjoyable reread, and I'm hoping to be able to get to book 5 in November. Well, it's on my November TBR, but then I've got 2 more books that I own physically that I would love to be able to read before the end of the year, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. But I'm going to try my best. So those were the 7 books I read in October. It was a mixed month. We had 2 5-star books, but we also had 2 2-star books. We had 2 4-star books and 1 3-star book. So no 0.5s anywhere to be seen. A bit mixed, but all round, I'm glad to have found a couple of 5 stars because I realised that this year, I think out of all the books I've read, only 6 or 7 have been new 5-star reads for me. So I haven't read many 5-star books at all this year. So I had to find 2 this month and then both be new books and not rereads. was very exciting. I was glad to have found those because they were wonderful. I'm really excited for my reading for the end of this year. I've nearly finished with my 25 and 2025. I have hit my reading goal. That's the other thing I did in October. I hit my reading goal of 60 books for the year. And the rest of the year just feels like free reading. And even though I have bought more than I've read, my physical TBR is slowly going down. So I'm feeling very focused on that and hoping to have made at least a bit of a bigger dent in it by the end of the year. But that's it. That's my wrap up for this month. Only a couple more to go. 2025 has been a fantastic reading year. It's not been so great in other aspects of my life, but my reading has been wonderful. So I'm feeling very nostalgic and a little bit bittersweet as it comes to an end. We're not even at the end yet. I just feel like we're in the last 2 months of the year and it's like, it's going to come around so fast. So with all of that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're reading a great book, and I'll see you next time for another bookish video. Bye!